Wake up to Bill Flynn in the morning.
Good morning and welcome to AM 980 The Eagle, our Friday edition of the Info Hour. And I know this is going to be a fascinating, insightful, and ultimately, I hope, inspirational next few minutes. Because what we have is we're going to talk about some very weighty and difficult moments in the life of Melissa Moore, who's on the line with us right now. Melissa, good morning.
Good morning.
How's life for you today, Melissa?
Good. It's my birthday today.
Well, happy birthday.
Thanks. I'm so glad to celebrate with you and your listeners.
All of us are singing in our silent mode.
Oh,
happy birthday to you
you
right now. So that's
thank
a
you.
nice
And you'll have
way.
to forgive me. I have allergies, so my voice sounds funny today too. So
That's all right. We're very
Okay.
forgiving around about things like that. And if you have to
Okay.
sneeze or cough or otherwise hack, we'll make room for that too. All right.
okay,
you're-
thank you.
you're-
I have my glass of water here in
Good.
case I do.
I
so.
want you're among friends. You're among people that really want to hear your story. You sound like a woman that has an appreciation and love for life. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, I do. I'm very happy, and I love life. I'm happy.
Well, let's talk about the journey to get to this level of happiness now in your adult life. That really was a shattering part of your life growing up. In fact, the book you have is Shattered Silence. I'll let you kind of introduce us to the story so we understand what it is you, as about a 15-year-old girl, realized about your own family. Go ahead.
Sure. I grew up in Washington State. My dad was a long-haul truck driver. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and there's three of us kids. I'm the oldest of three. I have a younger brother and a sister, and life was, seemed pretty normal. And
It sounds like every American family, every lucky American family, to have a mom and a dad, and brothers and sisters and what have you. So okay.
Yeah, it sounds pretty normal until I tell you that in 1995, my parents had separated in 1990. My dad had an affair with a waitress in California, which that's not too untypical in the United States, right? But in 1995, I was a freshman in high school, and I come home we were living with my grandmother because after my parents' divorce, financially we're devastated, and I find out the news that my dad is a serial killer, and not only just a serial killer, but he his last victim was his fiancée, Julie Winningham.
Now, I'm trying to imagine, I know how important my father was in my life, and no matter what, this is your dad, I understand, but I cannot imagine, because my dad is my hero, even now, and I think every child in some way would like their dad to be their hero, and here you find out that your dad is a serial killer. How does, especially now at this age, a freshman in high school, you've got hormones raging, you're trying to figure out who you are as a human being.
I know, high school's tough enough, right?
It is. It is.
I know.
Walk us through that emotional journey and how you dealt with that as a teenager.
Oh, it was a nightmare, to say the least. I really thought the world of my dad. I mean, he was our provider. He was my protector. So it was how do you wrap your mind around that your once protector is now someone's worst nightmare, killed someone. Someone who protects you does the opposite to someone else. It was, he used to tell me that my last name, I was to uphold it with honor, that I wasn't supposed to steal, that I wasn't supposed to do drugs or smoke. And then now my dad brings such shame upon our family name.
Did you right away instantly believe it, or did you take a while to say, this can't be the same person that I know as my dad?
Well, there was signs along the way, not signs that he was a serial killer per se, like that I would instantly, as a child, say, "Oh my God, it's a serial killer." Like it never crossed my mind to that extent, but I knew something was not right about my dad.
What were the things that, in retrospect, were the flags that maybe you didn't fully process until after the fact?
Yeah, as a young girl growing up in the country, we would have stray animals come on our property all the time, and my dad, he would torture them in front of us. The stray cats. I mean, it was just horrendous to see him grab animals in front of us and torture them in front of us, and we would be helpless to stop him.
Isn't that one of the, and that is actually one of the things that is associated often with people that end up moving on to human targets, that there is that kind of background in their life. Has that been your experience and truthful?
Oh, number one. Yes, number one. I mean, if they're cruel to animals, I mean, what's to prevent them from being cruel to people? I mean, that's actually why I knew when my mom said that he is in prison for murder. That's exactly how I made the association that my dad was capable for this. That he was going for trial for the serial murders, and I knew that he was guilty because I had remembered how he tortured and strangled the cats in front of us. And that's how I knew he was totally guilty. If he could do that to the cat or the cats in front of us, he could definitely do that to women.
This is just it's hard. I'm 56 years old and I'm trying to process this, and it's hard. And I'm wondering too about the dynamic once you get over the shock that your dad is this serial killer. Many would call a monstrous human being for doing these things. Then you start thinking the loss of life that he's responsible for by deliberate measure, and the families that have been forever destroyed and altered. And now you're processing that at some level, aren't you?
Right. Some of them had children. Some of the victims had children. I remember going to the library back then. Google wasn't really out yet back in the early 90s, and so I'd go to the main library and I would look up the newspaper clippings and read them, and I would read the statements from the victims' families, and I could hear their grief, I could hear their mourning, and I mean, I could hear their call for retribution and for justice, and I wanted them to get their pleas answered. And I felt, I was mourning too, as well, but in a different way. I was grieving the loss of the identity of who I thought my father was.
All right, if you'll hold on, we'll be back with another segment. Melissa Moore is her name. Shattered Silence. The story, the name of the book is Shattered Silence. Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Marketplace, by The Blaze, and it's available everywhere. We'll be back in just a bit.
Call now. The number is 896-1980, AM 980, The Eagle.
Good morning. It's 9:21. Bill Flynn on the Eagle Info Hour, and we're speaking with the author of the book Shattered Silence. And her name is Melissa Moore. At age 15, she learns the astounding, unbelievable, shocking, life-altering news that her father, the one that she loved, and by the way, did your dad ever show any signs of cruelty or aggression to you or your other siblings?
He was verbally abusive. Other than that, not physically abusive. Yes, he was. But you never feared for your life as a child with him. Is that correct? No, I never feared for my life.
Mm-hmm. And we come to find out that your father is not just a convicted murderer, but a serial killer. And folks may remember he was known as the Happy Face Killer. Why was that?
Because he would leave notes to the media in Oregon with a smiley face instead of his name. He would give clues. What happened with the first murder of Tonya Bennett was a lady came forward and indicted her boyfriend that that he committed the murder. And so they actually went through the whole trial, and they ended up serving a sentence for the murder of Tonya Bennett. And so my dad started coming forward saying, "You've got the wrong people. I actually committed this murder." And so he would leave signs to the media, includes long bathroom stalls around the nation about where you can find different articles of her clothing and things like that.
When you see your dad today as an adult woman, do you? I mean, is he a diagnosed sociopath? Or is he just a guy that is out of control, or at least was during these windows in his life? What do you see?
I definitely see a psychopath. He's a narcissistic psychopath. In a letter he once wrote to me, he said, "Don't judge me for I was a good dad all these years, and don't judge me only for the 8 errors in judgment," meaning, a.k.a. the murders. I mean, that's
errors
8 errors in judgment. Yeah. I mean, that tells you
this is a very
complete,
very detached, sick, unrepentant person. It sounds like ultimately they're not willing to deal with that.
Yes, he's a psychopath. He's narcissistic. He has no remorse. His only remorse is that he got caught. Anything that he says he's sorry for is just to manipulate and control people. I mean, everything that the murders were all based on power and control, and his violence was very predictable based on that.
Do you think justice has been served in the case of your dad? I know he's behind bars and has, I'm sure, multiple life sentences, correct?
Correct. I don't know if justice has been served in complete restitution. I don't, for the victims, I don't know if there's ever complete justice or closure. I don't think anything's ever neat and tidy and clean like that. I mean, we can't restore the lives that he's taken. We can't restore the amount of damage he's done to my family's lives and to the lives of the victims. There's no complete restoration possible in that way. I mean, I feel like the only thing that we can do, and at least in my life, what I've been able to do is just grow as a human being and find whatever happiness I can find, and that's the reward. It's just find my own dignity in life.
Where your father is apparently incapable of recognizing, sensing, or dealing with the shame that he has generated through his own actions, but you're not immune to that and that shame as a child. And then just very quickly, running out of time, but how did you get to the point of redemption where you could process this and become, at this point now, a mom, right?
Correct.
And that path to redemption for you, what did that involve?
It was many years. My daughter had come home from school, and she was learning about families and the family tree, and she realized that there was someone missing in our family that she didn't know. And she realized that she knew her dad's side of the family, but she's like, "Mom, everybody has a daddy. Where's your daddy?" And then I realized I hadn't come to terms with my past, and I had to tell my daughter, my daddy is serving, a life prison sentence in Oregon, but I didn't say that to her at the time. I said that he lives in Oregon, which is the truth, just not a full detailed account of why he lives in Oregon. But I realized I needed to heal, and I needed to come to terms with the crimes and the past that the weight of what he's done in my life. And so I went forward and I pulled out the journals. I always journaled as a young girl, and I started to process everything that happened. Before, I just dissociated and I minimized, and I just kept running away from the past, and I finally just came to head with it and started to deal with it. Many years, and that's what it takes, is just work every day, and finally you move. The pain dulls over time.
Well, listen, it's a courageous thing to share this story that for many people would want to totally dissociate themselves and just erase this connection. And I would certainly understand that as a very human reaction, especially for a teenage girl, but even for later in life, that the dissociation would be so important for you to do. But the courage that you've shown in dealing with this and expanding on the love really that you have for your daughter and recognizing the need to do everything. I'm sure that's all of this is covered and more in the book. It's called Shattered Silence, and I want to thank Melissa Moore for joining us this morning. Fascinating story, and our thoughts and prayers will continue to be with the families that have been utterly destroyed by your father's actions, and I think it's clear that your heart is profoundly touched and thoughtful of that. Melissa, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's AM 980, The Eagle.